안녕하세요, 박정현입니다. 반갑습니다. 제가 이제 오늘은 여기 조금 정리하고요. 좀 정리해야 될 것 같아요. 네, 제가 오늘 여기 숙명여대 영문학을 공부하고 있는 학생 여러분들이랑 이야기를 나눠볼 수 있는 그런 특별한 시간이 마련되어 있는데요. 저도 오늘 가수 아닌 강연자라는 그리고 그냥 영문학 선배라는 그런 새로운 모습으로 이렇게 만나뵐 수 있게 돼서 저도 많이 설레었습니다. 많이 긴장되기도 합니다. 오늘 제가 할 특강은요, 제가 느끼는 영문학이란 주제로 이렇게 준비를 했어요. 근데 영문학과 관련한 내용이기도 해서 현재 영어 혹은 영문학을 전공하시는 여러분들에게 더 의미가 있는 그런 특강을 될 수 있도록 제가 오늘 강의를 영어로 진행해 볼까 합니다. 네. So I will make the transition to English right now. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, I wanted to hear you because I want to know exactly what level of English proficiency that we're talking about here. A diverse level of English proficiency today? English majors? Wow, English literature majors? Yeah? Okay, so you're used to this. Yes? All right. Wow, I've spoken at concerts, I've done hundreds of interviews, I've even been on TV, but this is the first time I'm ever giving a lecture. So I know this is not new for you, but this is really new for me. So I was just really worried before I came here because, you know, you all spend day after day listening to seasoned lecturers and educators. So you might have to bear with me a little bit. I need to read. So if I read, please forgive me. It's not because I didn't remember what I wrote. It was just because I want to be able to give you the best lecture that I possibly can. And just to warn you, I speak English really, really fast, but I'll try to keep it slow. You know, just squeal if I'm going to. If I'm going a little bit too fast for you. I'll hear you and I'll try to slow down a little bit. I might throw out a little bit of Korean here and there, and I hope that doesn't sound too unnatural for everybody. Okay? Okay. So, everybody got a little handout. Don't worry about the handout that I gave you. It's just, you're not going to be tested. There's no quiz at the end of today's lecture. But I do reference a couple quotes during my lecture today. And I don't know about you, but for me, rather than hearing it, sometimes it's easier for me to see it in writing. So that's why I'm just giving you a few quotes. I'm not talking about all of this, but I do have a few quotes that I want you guys to be able to refer to maybe at a later date if, you know, you're suddenly curious. And at the end, I also just threw in a couple quotes from my favorite authors so that you can enjoy that. That's a little gift for you. Okay, so everybody here, of course, knows me more as a musician. But like I said earlier in Korean, I'm not here as a singer or a celebrity. I'm just here as somebody who has gone through exactly what you guys are going through now, which is studying the literature major. I am here today to talk about my experiences as a literature major, why I made that decision, why I felt like that was really the best decision for me. And in doing so, I hope that in some way I can help you find a new, different source of comfort or inspiration or just a different perspective to maybe help you as you pursue your own studies. Now, some of you may know, I'm not sure if Professor Lee mentioned in his introduction, but it took me a really long time to finish college. I only went to college for 2 years, and then I came to Korea to pursue a musical career. And then after doing some music, I decided to return to school. So I was doing both at the same time. I was doing music here, then I would finish an album promotion, and then I would go back and forth to the United States, and I would do this over the period of many years until finally in 2010, I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and Comparative Literature from Columbia University in New York City. Now, many people have always been very, very curious, and they've always been asking me, and they still keep asking me, why I chose literature. Why literature? So I thought that would be kind of like a nice title and theme for today's talk. So that's kind of like the subject. That's our guiding light. That's our northern star. Why literature? Now, this, I'm sure, is a question that some of you may be struggling with now, or maybe have struggled with in the past, wondering why choose this path? Is this the right path for me? Where will this path lead after graduation? Maybe some of you already know, oh, no, I'm in the right place. But you've been asked this question, or are being asked the same question, why literature, by others around you. Friends, colleagues, parents, who are maybe just curious or don't understand, or maybe they doubt the importance of the usefulness of a liberal arts degree. So in preparing for today's lecture, I decided to ask some literature majors that I knew, by the way, why did you major in English? What about you? Why did you major in English? And so I was really surprised, but just about everybody gave me the same answer. This one person, he said, oh, because I hate math, which was probably the strangest answer I've ever heard for why I became an English major. But except for that one strange friend, everybody gave me the same answer, and actually is my simple answer as well. Why literature? Because I love to read. I just love to read. I'm crazy about books, about stories. Ever since I was a little girl, we have this phrase where your nose is always in a book. You can't even see your face. You don't even know where you're going. That was me. How many of you were like that when you were young, just obsessed with books? Some people said, no, I don't really like books. So I love books and I love stories, and that's really, really the simple reason of why I wanted to immerse myself with books when I had to choose a field of study. And looking back now, I think that this love of books is truly a fundamental part of what formed my identity as a child. Now, let me explain that. I know it's hard to believe it now, but when I was young, I was a very, very shy child. Extremely shy, painfully. I panicked whenever I saw somebody who even looked like they were going to talk to me or ask me a question. I would kind of just avoid them. I don't know what it was. I think that my family moved a lot, and that had something to do with it. During my elementary and my middle school years, we were changing schools every year, almost every year, every other year. And I think not being able to adjust at that young age made me really, really shy. I was fine at home. What you see now is what I was like at home. I was loud. My laugh is loud. I was the eldest, so I was bossy. But as soon as I stepped outside my house, just in public, when I was in school or at church, I was just quiet as a church mouse, as they say, right? Some people have told me that they went to school with me for years and years and years and actually never knew that we had gone to school together for that long. That's how quiet I was. So what I did to help with that was I read books. I had a lot to say. I just couldn't seem to figure out a comfortable way to say it in front of people. But reading books, that became sort of my therapy, 치료, my cure. Reading books was my release, my escape. I could go into a story. I could be in a different place. I could be those characters. I could be that main character, that hero, that heroine, that cool girl, that important person. And so books sort of became, my best friends as I was growing up. I don't know if anybody's ever read this book, but I was just in your library and you had a very special, a display on Canadian writers, and Anne of Green Gables is one of my favorite books growing up. In Korean it's called 빨간머리 앤. And I was just obsessed with those books when I was little because I wanted to be Anne. She was exactly like me, but she could say it and be like that in front of everybody else when I couldn't. And that was one of the reasons why books just really became my comfort zone. I really wanted to have red hair for the longest time too. I love fantasy and science fiction as well. A lot of my fans know that I love 반지의 제왕. I love science and fantasy just because, science fiction, and fantasy, because of the worlds that it was creating for me, worlds that were so exciting. It made me really feel like there could be a really magical world out there, or I could try and bring that magical aspect into my own reality. So it really, really inspired me. They were my best friends. It was my place to go to. And so I would go to school, can't talk to anybody, shy, and frustrated. Why am I shy? And lunchtime would come, and I would just sit down and then take a deep breath and escape with my favorite book. I was so engrossed in these stories that I sadly kind of preferred it to my real life. That's sad. But how many of you guys stayed up late at night, secretly reading when you should be sleeping early? I had the bed covers over my head like this, and it was dark, so I had a flashlight. And I would be secretly reading under the covers, click, 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 click. Oh, I hear someone coming. Click. Oh, they're gone. Click. I'd always wake up late for school. My parents would be yelling at me, "야, 너 학교 안 가?" Yeah, that was me. That was me, and that was how much books were part of my life. But you may ask, I became a singer. How did that happen? So now I have to explain music here. Music. Music is my other great love. If you want to know anything about me, you only need to know two things: music and books. Truly my two great loves. And they are more related to each other than you think, because if books were one outlet of self-expression, music was another one. Music was another way to express myself, because I had such a hard time expressing myself with words. And I was so shy because I was always afraid that, if I say something, it's going to sound dumb. I was just so worried about saying the wrong thing or looking dumb and being embarrassed. But singing was the only time I felt comfortable in front of other people. I didn't have to worry what I was going to say was dumb. Somebody much smarter had already written the lyrics for me. I knew that what I was going to say was already something beautiful. So music was another source of comfort. So while I was immersed in books, I was concentrating on studies in high school. And I worked really hard in high school because I know this sounds kind of like a nerd speaking, but I really wanted to go to college. I remember reading books where a character would go to college, somewhere very romantic, or become a teacher like 빨간 머리 Anne. And I just thought that was very exotic, very exciting, and I felt like that's what I want to do when I grow up. Go to a college, walk in this beautiful campus with a book in my hand, 아주 지적인 이런 image. And yeah, that was kind of like my dreams, my roman. And so I worked and I studied very hard to go to college. But at the same time, I was pursuing my other love, music. I was taking voice lessons, and I started auditioning for musicals in high school, 장기자랑, 학교 축제, and local talent contests. And it was nice because starting to do music and sing in front of people, it finally started helping me to overcome this problem that I had with shyness. So, when I applied to college, I decided to audition for UCLA's theater program. I was very interested in musicals and musical theaters at that time. So I thought, okay, I want to be more trained in performing, maybe get experience. It was helping me with the shyness. And plus, in theater, we still get to read. There's still some literature. I thought it was the best of both worlds. But it was so ironic because while I was at UCLA, I became less and less interested in the performing and more interested in the literature of theater, in the theater history, theater aesthetics, philosophy, plays, and even playwriting. And everybody has those general requirements that we have to take for graduation. And one of those is literature requirements. I just kept taking literature course after literature course. I was already way over the requirement. But I don't know if you have class catalogs for the next semester and you have a syllabus. Next year, there will be a class on James Joyce. And then there's a little description. I would read those catalogs like they were a magazine. I'm like, oh, I want to read that one too. Oh, you get to read that? And I kept taking literature courses instead of theater courses, and this became sort of a bad habit with me. But I don't know, does that sound like something that you've done before? Oh, you get to read Jane Austen. I want to read Jane Austen. I get to read it for class. Even better. So that was my attitude towards literature, to the point that I think that if I had continued at UCLA, I might have changed my major in the middle from theater to literature. We'll never know because I didn't stay. Because in my sophomore year, something happened that changed my life forever. And I had still been singing and auditioning for musicals and singing for local talent contests, and I got scouted by a Korean producer to come out here to do music. And that's how I'm here, by the way. I left UCLA after my sophomore year to come here and to pursue a musical career. And it was really, really hard when I first came here because I could not speak a word of Korean. That was really tough. And I didn't just come here and be successful right off the bat. It actually took me more than 2 grueling years to prepare for my debut. And after a lot of failed attempts at this music and that music, there was a lot of music before my first album. But finally, in 1998, I debuted with a solid title. Now I'm doing Konglish. I debuted with a solid title song, and everybody knows this song as 나의 하루. So, 너무 옛날 거라. But yeah, it was a dream. You can imagine, it was a dream come true. I was finally debuted as a singer. I was following one of my dreams. And I continued to get some steady musical work, continue to be able to record and release albums. But I was always a little bit sad that I never got to finish college after all that work in my rumang. So I had always decided one day when I have time, I'm going to go back. I'm going to finish school. I'm going to finish my degree. And so finally, after 6 years, after finishing my third album, I decided to go for it. And this time, instead of returning to Los Angeles and UCLA, I decided to return to my original love, literature, and I was accepted into Columbia University as an English major. And now I'm going to tell you what I learned there. Okay, you're going to need your handouts now. So, studying literature is what I did at Columbia. Studying literature is quite different, I learned, from just curling up on your couch one day during vacation with your favorite book. Studying literature is very different from spending hours at the bookstore just picking random books off of the shelves. There's this 18th century English writer, and his name is G.K. Chesterton, and he was once reported to have said, "There is a great deal of difference between an eager man who wants to read a book and the tired man who wants a book to read." And this is a difficult quote, so I'm going to read it to you again. "There is a great deal of difference between an eager man who wants to read a book and the tired man who wants a book to read." Chesterton is describing two different attitudes to reading. A casual reader, maybe someone who, after a long day's work, to reward themselves from their everyday pressures, they just want to relax. They want to let loose with a good book. Much like people like to relax by watching dramas on TV. But the eager man in this quote, that's us. The eager man, we're students of literature. And when we read a book, it's not like reading Twitter messages or flipping through a fashion magazine. It's active reading. It's about absorbing not just the plot, but paying attention to style, to form, understanding the art of writing, and trying to guess the writer's intentions. Trying to assess why this literary work was important at that time when it was written, and we decide why it's important to us now in our current society. I think most of us started out as a casual reader. I started out as a casual reader. Oh, I finished my homework, now I get to read. That was how I started out reading. So I was the tired man in the very beginning. But I definitely learned that as a literature major, and I'm sure that everybody here is discovering now as literature majors, that reading and reading for study really are two completely different things. I also learned that studying literature is not easy. And I hate it when people say, "Oh, you're an English major? You must be nice, so easy." It's not easy. I met many young students at Columbia, and they would complain, "Why do I have to read this? Why do I have to know about the Renaissance? When is this ever going to affect my life?" And only because maybe I was a little older than the other students, maybe because I had this whole other work experience before I went back to school, I thought of it differently, and I wish I could have told those students. I get to tell you today that the material is only half the point. I was very stimulated because I felt like I was getting training, and I was learning tools of reasoning, tools of analysis. And no, I never have to talk about the Renaissance while I'm doing a TV show like 나는 가수다. Yeah, I'm not quoting Shakespeare when I'm doing concerts. But learning how to read well, to analyze and absorb text, to write effectively and concisely, these are tools that have actually become habits now that better the quality of me as an album producer, as somebody who is negotiating their music, working with a team to create a special project, be it a concert or a song. Now, when I'm planning an album and a concert, I actually tend to try and compile and look for motifs and threads to pull the entire project as a whole, much like a literary work. Now, I don't have to do it this way, but that's just my personal aesthetic, because that's an aesthetic that reflects what I've learned in my studies. When we study a literary text, I learned that we have to simultaneously absorb history, philosophy, psychology, and politics. So never doubt for 1 minute that you are actually learning skills. You're learning analytical skills and writing skills, and these skills are what really make the difference between success and mediocrity for people of any career, even the scientific and medical fields. Now, I recently did an interview, and this interviewer, they wanted concrete examples. No, but really, how do you use literature in your music? How do you use it? You know, like I use a glass of water to sing. I think that this person wanted to hear some grand answer like, oh, well, I was so inspired by Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet that I have recorded an entire album to be a metaphor for Shakespeare's underlying themes. No, I don't think that will ever happen, and I've never done anything like that. But just because my love of literature is simply just part of my personality, there has been random instances where books and music have crossed paths. For example, I was working on a song for my 5th album, and I was actually attending Columbia at the time, so we were working on it in the United States. And so I was working on this song with producer-songwriter 정석원, 공유로비의 정석원 씨입니다. And he had finished the lyrics for this song, and he was trying to explain to me the lyrics, and he said, Lena, I wrote this song. I don't know if you're gonna like it. I'm like, why? He's like, oh, he knows that I'm very picky about my subject matter and my lyrics. And he said, I wrote this song about this crazy lady. She's a psycho 집착하는 여자 이야기. So I read the lyrics, and while I was reading the lyrics, I was like, huh, reminds me of Miss Havisham. He had no idea what I was talking about. But it just so happened that I was reading Charles Dickens's Great Expectations, 위대한 예산, for a class at Columbia, 18th century European novel. And so I explained, yeah, there's this character in this book I'm reading right now, Miss Havisham. She's crazy. She was abandoned by her lover on her wedding day. She wears this old wedding dress. It's creepy. There's this rotten wedding cake on this table. And we thought that it was a perfect match. And we ended up actually naming that song Miss Havisham's Waltz. So this is one example of many where it'll just kind of cross into my life once in a blue moon. And I think that's wonderful because, you know, that's just how much literature has permeated every aspect of my life, as it permeates a lot of other people's lives. Now, 정석원 씨, he also wrote another song for me that a lot of you are very familiar with. That song is called 꿈에. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but Gume, he told me, was also inspired by a story that he read. 만화였지만. It was an anime that he read that he was inspired by. Now, I don't know the mana personally myself, because I don't read a lot of anime. So he was trying to describe it to me. Oh, it's so sad. This character, this girl, she, for the whole time that you're reading this mana, she has this wonderful love story where she reunites with this long lost love. And she thought he was gone forever, only to find out at the end that it was a dream, and that he knew it was a dream, and it was a fantasy anime story, because he had come back, from this other world and purposely gone into the dream just so that they could be together one last time. That's the story of Gume. And I was so sad. It was such a tragic story when he explained it to me. And he was so sad when he was explaining it to me that every time I sing that song, much like what I do when I sing every song, I always try to become that character, just like I was becoming the characters in the books that I read as a child. Ultimately, the songs that I sing, they are also stories as well. So they are very interrelated. So in the end, why I chose literature? Why literature? I chose it because I was following my passion. My parents were not happy with my pursuit of the arts. My mother wanted me to become a lawyer. She wanted me to study political science. She said, 아니, UCLA까지 들어갔는데 왜 근육을 다 버리냐고. My parents, they didn't see how liberal arts would be practical or helpful for a high-paying career. And I think that it just really scared them. My mother loves music. She plays the piano, the mandolin. She writes poetry. My father is also a book lover. He's a talented public speaker, and he writes. He was a pastor, and he wrote all his sermons. But these skills, they did not help my parents when they immigrated to America, when they were struggling just to survive, just to feed themselves and their children. So after all their hard work to help me to finish school and to be able to go to college, they just really wanted some guarantee that I would succeed, that I would go to college and find a solid and a stable job, or just get married. So of course I understood when they asked me, why liberal arts? Why do music? Why study literature? Is there anybody here where this situation sounds a little familiar? I'm guessing that there may be at least one or two of you. Somebody do this, please, even if it's a lie. But it is quite a dilemma. And of course, books have taught us that there is really no easy one answer, no right way, no wrong way in a dilemma like this. And any advice that I can offer you purely comes out of my own personal experience, which is why I share it with you guys today. But here's my theory. 저의 이론은요. I decided to pursue something that I had a sincere interest and passion for. I followed my heart, as cheesy as that sounds. But I really believe that it was that interest and that passion in what I was studying that was really a key and crucial factor in helping me to succeed. Now let me be clear about one thing. I have this image, 모범생. I really wasn't good at it. I really struggled. But I loved it, and loving it was my motivation to withstand any challenge, any obstacle that book that I just did not want to read. I don't want to read Machiavelli. Or I don't want to write this paper. I just wanted to throw books against the wall sometimes. And it was very difficult. It was very, very challenging. But I thought that it was better to be sitting here complaining about something that I loved rather than complaining about a field of study that I didn't like, or even worse, didn't have an interest or a personal stake in. I know so many people who just chose the major that gave them the clearest, most direct, fastest track to a good job. My sister, who is a talented musician and has one of the most beautiful singing voices I've ever heard, majored in biology. She said that at the time she thought that's how she could help people. Other of my friends, they tried to balance their love of books with practicality. Oh, I'll major in sociology. 사회학. I still get to read, but maybe a sociology degree will help me get into law school better than a literature degree can. And different things work for different people, obviously. My sister graduated with a biology major, but ended up pursuing music later anyway, in graduate school, becoming praise leader at her church. I know music majors who actually wanted to become doctors later. And I know literature majors who actually now work in computer and technology. The point is, these friends, my sister, we chose to go with what we were interested. I mean, whether sooner or whether later. And sometimes in life, these interests can change. But one thing that shouldn't change is that interest factor, the passion factor. Because I truly believe that is what helps to determine whether you're going to succeed or not. And I don't mean success as in money or fame. So if you don't make a lot of money, don't come up back to me and say, you said. I mean success in terms of feeling fulfilled in your work and what you're doing. Being happy. I never pursued a music career because I wanted to hit singles and I wanted to be a star. I just wanted a chance to sing because singing just really makes me happy. There have been so many times where things got hard. I just wanted to give up sometimes. Man-won in my pocket, I kid you not. So many times where my parents just begged me, please just give up. Come back to the States, come home. But the only thing that stopped me from doing that was because even though I was struggling doing something that still inspired me and moved me. Something that I felt like I just had to try until I couldn't try anymore. And when there was nothing, there was that commitment, that love, the chung, the attachment that kept me going. It was the same case in choosing to study literature. I had a good and steady music career here in Korea. 3 albums, not bad. Single in the top 10. I'm able to do concerts. I did Jeongguk tour, concert tours. This is good, Mom, Dad, I'm doing well. Why risk losing all of that to go back to school? It's not like I need a degree to be a 가수. Why going back to school could have potentially damaged my career if I couldn't keep, making the fans happy, keep recording the albums, releasing new singles. But the same thing happened again. I just couldn't abandon this love, this desire, this, oh, what if? It was always this, what if I had learned more about that? That was literature. It was really insanely hard to juggle both. Looking back, it was almost like some weird comedy movie Because one minute I'm here and I'm wearing very fancy clothes and I'm wearing a lot of makeup and the spotlight is on me and there's thousands of people in a stadium and I'm singing. It's very, very fancy. And then the next minute, I'm in New York in my pajamas, training, and I'm running out of the subway. I have these books that are falling off my shoulder in this bag. My bagel is in my mouth, the coffee is spilling, and I'm running to class because I'm late again. I was a mess. Sometimes I just couldn't remember what country I was in. But I was struggling in my pursuit of something that I loved, so somehow I was exactly where I wanted to be. Now, so what about you? I'm turning it over to you guys. I'm not asking a question, but why literature? Many of you face right now the dilemma of an unstable future after graduation. How to enter Korea's crazy competitive workforce with a bachelor's degree in English literature. Whether to just continue on to graduate studies or not. Whether this is worth the effort or not. Many of you might worry this is going to leave me with just so many limited options for starting some sort of career. Many of you, like me, may also be dealing with disapproving parents who are worried, who also feel like this path of a literature major is not clear. It's too unclear, and they worry. They think that you're wasting your time. And yes, the path for literature majors after graduation is not as clear as other majors and other disciplines of study. It's not like, I want to be a doctor. I'll do biology, and you can chart out exactly, step by step. I'll do my chemistry, then I'll do my organic chemistry. Study for medical school, go to medical school, internship, residency. Ta-da! I'm a doctor. And don't get me wrong, there is great diversity in the medical profession, and doctors are wonderful. But yeah, it's a little unclear, the path after a literature major. What do you do with it? Where do you go? We can't all become English professors. And yeah, it's frightening. The lack of structure, yeah, it's stressful. But on the other hand, I think that it's precisely that lack of clarity that can be freeing. It is exactly, I think, the broad and open-ended nature of the humanities that allows what we do with the literature major to be completely up to us. It's flexible. It'll work with you. It's open for our interpretation, just like the books that we love to read. So, why literature? Why not? I mean, none of us can predict our futures, how much what we are studying now is going to come back to us in the future or will help or not help. I certainly didn't know. But if you love where you are right now, this is absolutely the best time to follow that interest and that passion. Because learning to trust your instincts and learning to commit to a certain study, these are also tools, greater lessons and experiences that are never going to leave you, no matter where you end up, where we all end up 20 years from now. It is only important that you have chosen to immerse yourself in this or any world for now. And what a wonderful world it is, the world of literature. It's so rich and it's enriching. Everybody is talking about the humanities crisis these days. 인문학의 위기란? The field of literature study is diminishing. The liberal arts is disappearing. It's unpopular. It's losing relevance in this wired, Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G, LTE, smartphone, tablet, SNS, Instagram society. I recently read an article in the New York Times by an English professor at the University of Columbia, Berkeley. His name is Scott Saul, and from his point of view, he thinks no, the liberal arts are quite thriving. They're more popular than ever. And the literature courses at school are always the first in the universities to fill up in attendance, and they have the longest waiting lists. Why? Well, Professor Saul writes, the answer simply is the resilience of the humanities canon. Students remain grabbed by the questions that we pose in humanities classrooms about style and character, politics and perception, love and ethics. And they're grabbed by how we follow these lines of inquiry into the pages of a novel, or the composition of a painting, or the prose of a philosophical treatise. Because no matter what, it's people and human experience, our life experiences, that comprise the substance of this wired 3G, 4G, smartphone, tablet, SMS, global Instagram society. What are we doing by reading and studying books if we are not studying life experiences? The humanities and literature arts are as relevant as ever. And seeing all your bright and inquisitive faces here today, I think the humanities are better for it. And that kind of concludes my point. And I hope this helps everybody in some way. I hope this is at least an entertaining afternoon. It's already becoming evening. We saw the sunset together. Isn't that romantic? Thank you so much for letting me share my experiences and my passion for literature. And I truly, sincerely wish the best of luck to all of you in all of your future endeavors. And even if half the people in this room eventually become CEOs or doctors, fighting. But if I can give you one small personal hope, I hope that none of you ever lose your love of reading. And because I am such a nerd, I will conclude with a quote by Harold Kushner. I think of life as a good book. The further you get into it, the more it begins to make sense. Thank you.